All right, last episode, we got these axles together for our Dodge Ram. We've been working on Land Cruiser as well. That's in a different video. But now we have a generator here and we can fit that underneath the hood. Now that we can move the engine ahead because we're done with that manual transmission for the next stage of testing. And look at that, we have a generator here. I know it's not exactly what we need, but it is exactly what we need right now. Let's get into it. First Cummins swap into a Dodge.
I feel like we did a pretty good job on her. Definitely SEMA worthy.
This is the process that we'll be using to put our electric motors underneath any and every single pickup truck that's been built in the last 6 decades. Well, here goes nothing. Nice and easy, that's all I wanted to do, make sure that we had lots of room for the engine. We are getting some of the parts designed and made. That means we're waiting on parts. So there's only so much I can do, but we just had the batteries roughly sized, ready for our generator. We just had this one mocked up. I'm really excited. I was a little worried about the color first, but I think it is actually the perfect color. Can't wait to show you guys.
All assembled, coolant lines, power out, control in. Looking pretty cool. Now we're gonna give it a coat of paint.
So while TNK is making our generator for us, I'll show you that in a minute, but we need to change the bell housing on this 2.8 Cummins because Cummins likes to use their own generic bell housing for this, and it's completely round. It's just an odd size. So we have an SAE3 bell housing here, and that's more universal because our generator has an SAE3 bell housing. So we gotta pull this bell housing off. I'm not exactly even sure what's all involved in that, but it is sealed, and the rear main seal goes in the bell housing. I hate that because it could have just been like a nice simple bell housing, pop it off, put the casing behind it with the seal on it. Nothing wrong with that. It's just way more complicated than it really needs to be, but I'm not complaining. Let's take it off. Here we go. Okay, so the timing chain for the camshaft must go through the back here, which is why this is all lubricated. But the problem is that it is now this is now sandwiched between the housing for the camshaft and the oil pan, because the oil pan also goes right here. So, good time to take the oil pan off, see if it's ambidextrous, if we can turn those around. What's involved in having to get a front sump pickup tube for it. I hate it when you're doing one thing and you gotta take a bunch of other stuff off to get to it. We'll keep that in mind when we build our own trucks. Here we go. Okay, so the oil pan is the pickup tube. So there's a opening right here, and then that pickup is built into the oil pan and picks up the oil. So even if it is ambidextrous, it doesn't matter because the pickup is in there. So we would have to get just the oil pan, but not the pickup tube, which is really nice because we can swap this in tight places, because the cross member, like generally you have to take the oil pan and then stick it down underneath the pickup tube to get it out from underneath the vehicle. But in this case, that's not the case at all. We just drop the pan that 1/2 inch and you can slide it one way or another. You can start spinning it and trying to drop it down right away. So that's nice, but it's annoying because we would need a new oil pan. I'm gonna try and make it fit with the rear sump. And then looking at this, it's kind of a thing too. This is the seal, comes with the tool, and the tool centers the seal in the crankshaft. But I still have to push it up against here because I don't want to take all this apart. So I'm not sure if you install the seal afterwards or before, but I don't think I'll be able to. I guess if I had a nice seal installer tool, that would probably be best to do it afterwards, because otherwise I risk damaging the seal if I lift up. So if I find something, a piece of pipe that's the right size on that, and I can tappy that nice and easy into it, that would work best, I think. Yes, that will be the plan. I tried looking it up online, but there's the maintenance and the owner's manual is available, but not the manual on how to rebuild these. We should probably get one of those. Anyway, I think that's a decent plan. We'll put a tiny bit of silicone back on it and mount that one. After that, we'll install the seal. If it doesn't work, then I take it off again and then do the seal in there on the press and then pop it on, but I think this is safer. Okay, there it is. Now the seal definitely had to go on afterwards. It popped on really nice. We got just the right amount of silicone leaking out over the side. Got our oil pan back on again, so we're ready for our generator. There it is, look at that. Now, I've had a couple people say, hurry up with this project, what's going on? Well, this doesn't exist yet. This is getting made especially for us right now. This is the right size generator that is a good match behind this 2.8, about 160 horsepower, the right size and exactly what we need. So we need a sealed generator with coolant lines on it because we can't just have any generator going down the road. That's going to get all the crap in there from the road. So it has to be a sealed unit, cooled, and this is the right output for our battery. So while we're waiting for the actual one to get made, we just had this one mocked up. This is the size that it's going to be. This is where the outlet's going to be. The nice thing is we're able to rotate it, so we can put this wherever, but that depends on where the mounts are for the back of this. We might make mounts that go off on the side here that we can just bolt to the bell housing in 3 spots, and then we can rotate this wherever, because in some situations it might be best on the left, sometimes on the right, sometimes on the bottom, sometimes this thing needs to be on the top. But ideally I think we want all of this on the bottom. It's going to be up plenty high. We're not going to hit it with anything. And then that allows for the firewall to come right here. We don't have to notch it much. But I'm going to pop this thing on, and then I need the hoist for a little bit, and then we will figure out how to put it in our frame. So here we go. Okay, Okay, so part of the delays is we're not buying all off-the-shelf parts. We are getting some of the parts designed and made. Part of that is the generator and the batteries specifically for what we need. So we just had the batteries roughly sized, so I know exactly where the batteries are gonna go, figure out the fuel tank situation, cross members, things like that. But the biggest thing is our cab, and I wanna put this engine underneath the hood with the generator, and then I can figure out how thick of a radiator we can get and how much room I have under the hood for things like the chiller and all of the electronics. So I already shaved the engine mounts off, and the oil filter sits pretty close on top, so we're gonna have to use our oil filter relocate, but that actually comes with the engine. So we've got our generator on there. Now I pointed all the important parts down. We might be able to have the room to have them up. It's kind of unfortunate where they are placed, but we have this is what's available like right now, but I think we're getting ours made with it coming off the back and then pointing down. So once it clears the little angle, basically like right here, it's kind of pointing back towards the underneath. And keep in mind, we can tilt this engine however way we want. We can actually stick it sideways, we can stick it off center one way or the other. But we'll place this in there, we'll put the cab back on it, see how much room we got. Look at all that room for activities. Nice. So I got about 11 inches from here to the front of the engine, but we got lots of room. Like even I can tilt the generator back or down just a little bit. That wouldn't hurt anything at all. And that even leaves room to put the fittings off to the side. But I think I can bring the engine back like another 3 inches, and that'll give me lots of room for coolers. We're gonna put some oversized coolers on this to start with, just because we don't wanna run into heat issues off the bat. We wanna test the rest of the system. But we figure that it's a good way to test it. We can make the radiator smaller. It's better to go too big at first and realize that we're overcooling than it is to undercool. So we're getting some pretty significant radiators. So we've got the AC condenser, then we got the air to air for the engine, then we'll have the EV cooler and then the engine cooler. So the EV cooler will run at about 35 degrees Celsius, so about 75, under 100 Fahrenheit anyway. But then the engine, when the engine kicks on once in a while, it's going to run at your typical engine temperature. So we've got medium air only sometimes when it's running. Then the EV cooler gets most of the surface area. It's a very nice big wide radiator, so we're very confident in it. And then we're going back. Unfortunately, we didn't need to cut that spot out for this firewall. Like we got so much room here, we can put that engine right back. So we're gonna weld that back in again. I still have the piece. Not a big deal because we're going to soundproof this entire wall, and we're going to remove this entire interior. We're going to put a 4th gen interior in this too. So yeah, moving right along. We'll pick this thing up after break, coffee time. We're going to pick this thing up, slide it back as far as we can, and then hold it in place while we figure out our mounting system, which is going to be Mercedes little gel caps. So yeah, so these are the kind of gel mounts for Mercedes. I think they're gel. They're a pretty good fit actually for right in here. So hopefully they'll compress a little bit, and it's basically just a little plate to hold them in place, and that should work very, very nice. And we've got the slit down here even to make it adjustable. See the slit? There's the slit. This is gonna work so nice. Okay, so I got that engine mount in. I got a little bracket made. I'll pull it out and show you guys closer. But basically, I can have it. I do miss this. It's too far back, so I'm gonna have it basically as close to that corner as I can while I can still get on it and tighten the nut from the bottom. So I can take the cab off. Again, I think easiest thing is probably to take the rad and this upper mount off. Center cooler. and then I can go right out the front, and I don't have to support the engine and take the cab off. So should be, yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, so there's my engine mount, which is just a piece of C-channel with a hole cut in it so I can get out the bolt on the top, and for weight savings, obviously. And then a cheap little Mercedes mount, $30 from Amazon, and a piece of flat plate that I'm just gonna tack in place when I have the engine sitting where I want on both sides. And now imagine this. Imagine that Edison actually makes it, and we turn into this big giant company that I know we can be. And somebody finds this 20 years later and go, holy crap, that's the first original Ram. And then you start looking at it, it's like, isn't that just angle iron and C-channel and the grinder and a welder? Yep, absolutely. And you know what, it works. So thanks B&R for used steel here and there now and again. We're gonna weld this thing in place, and then we'll get at these horns, and then we're almost there. So I'm gonna tie this bracket into this bracket. Just gonna kind of extend that up. It's kind of an afterthought. There is no mistakes. I totally did that on purpose. Just happy accidents. And I'm not very good at welding upside down. So I'm just gonna take the whole frame and flip it upside down and then brag about my upside down welding when it's actually right side up because it's upside down. Okay, frame is stripped. I'm gonna take the back axle off, and we're gonna rotate those saddles just so that we can drop this motor down just a little bit. Tried to think ahead, and that one backfired, so now I gotta spend an hour fixing it. But that's okay, not a big deal, we'll get it. So those plates came off really easy, just with a cutting disc. Just cut one strip there, and then cut the pieces off, and just a little groove in there, and then a hammer, and it tapped right off. So I welded that one on. I left this one loose. That way I can drop this thing back down on here, and then that'll have the right spacing, and it'll have the right orientation, and we should be good. Because yeah, can't really rotate, and it'll find itself. Okay, so we gotta put the shock mounts underneath, but half of it goes onto the top hat, so I just have to trim my little half moon section here. And this will be a load-bearing bracket to help hold the axle tube to the top hat. Okay, got lucky. It's not so bad in there. Got a little bit of rust, but it's nice and thick. Just a tiny bit of scale there. That's all in good shape, and all of my supports for my steering box look really good too. So I can cut that little corner out of my two-wheel drive, because this was the four-wheel drive setup, and that was from Ontario. The back half of the frame was from BC. So the front half of the horn is the same, but all the mounts for the suspension are different. So that's why we drafted this four-wheel drive into the two-wheel drive, knowing I had to do this little repair. Grafting in one of these things that has like a corner this way, a corner that way, a corner this way, it's very tricky because you think it doesn't fit. So what I did was cut it in half and then lay the piece on top, and then I'm close to where my thing is, but I still give myself extra, and then lay it down and then keep cutting with my cutting disc and slowly dropping it down until it's in the right spot. And I like having just that little bit of a gap in between here, just the width of the cutting disc, because that lets the weld go down in and catch both sides really nice. And you think that, you know, it doesn't fit right. You really have to imagine that because the corners are all on an angle, all these lines are on an angle, that just because you cut it to make it fit doesn't mean that you don't cut it too much, because the angle cuts back, if you know what I mean. Take your time when you're doing something like this. It's worth it just to just make an extra bunch of cuts, spend that extra 10 minutes, because it's hard to bend this thing and make it look stock. It overlaps, it's got two nuts here, it's got curves going every which way. So it's nice that we had that good two-wheel drive setup outside that I could cut from, but you only get one shot. Now, I didn't under oil it on the inside just yet because we're gonna paint it, and all that oil will run out and then cause all sorts of havoc with the paint. So we're gonna splash some paint on it, and then we'll under oil, or we'll put some fluid film on the inside of the frame, the inside of the horn. And honestly, they need to have a weeping hole here just to get that water to run out, with like a cotter pin in there. If you stick a cotter pin in there, the cotter pin moves around, keeps the hole open, and then lets that moisture escape. Because on both of these, it's just because the water sticks here, there's no way for it to come back out. So you get water in through these holes here and the holes back there, and they can't come out. But if you stick a cotter pin in there, then it just kind of bounces around and moves around. The wind moves it, keeps that hole open, and gets rid of that moisture. It's late at night, and something's like, it's 20 after 10, and I must have done something wrong, because it is Friday night and I still have a tiny bit of gas left. So I should have ran out right around 4 o'clock, just not in time to go exchange that bottle for a new one. But I got all my welding done and I still have some gas left over, so probably forgot to do some welding. Anyway, that's it for this. We're gonna wire wheel the bottom of this quick, throw a little bit of Rust-Oleum primer on there, and send her off to paint. Actually, I might even just let them do that. They got a fancy gun and they'll just touch up the primer. I was running out of primer, so the very bottom of it got a little bit, not as much coverage as I would have liked. But I'm very happy with the horns, how those turned out. My mounts look fantastic. I added another little brace here just because. Now there's 2 of them that run, so that's suspension mount and then my engine mount, all tied in nicely together, and it looks wonderful. So I think that's it. I'm gonna go to bed. We got a snowstorm. I gotta go clean some snow in the morning and then drop this thing off at the paint shop. All right, you excited?
Yeah, I'm a little excited. First time seeing one of these for sure. Yeah, we're gonna paint her blue, strip her down, pull the axles off, pull the wheels off. We've got new leaf springs coming.
Yeah.
Paint the hitch black, and then give her back to Rich for some more work.
I'm really excited. I was a little worried about the color first, but I think it is actually the perfect color for everything. So I can't wait to show you guys. We're gonna head over to T&K and check out the front axle to show you guys the color that this is gonna be as well. I'm very excited. So let's head over there now. As you remember, this was in the last video when Chase and I put this underneath the Ram, but it was just tacked together and basically just for fitting and make sure that, you know, we had everything in the right spot. Since then, you've basically almost finished it.
So close, you could taste it. We were waiting on a few parts to come in, and they finally came in, so we can finally get the axle shafts in there and actually take that power and throw it to the wheels.
We had to make sure that the spider gears were perfectly centered in here.
Yep,
and then there's a seal right here.
Yep, so there's a shaft seal or whatever you call it. It's actually inside of this, what we've been calling the top hats. There's one on either side, of course, and then so we gotta basically take these new axle shafts, turn them down, make sure that everything's fitting perfectly, and then we got to get the length right and put our knuckles on there.
Okay, so we had to get these splines cut. These are for the Chinese spider gears in here.
That's right.
And
yep.
these look pretty hefty.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot of meat there. If you compare it to what came out of this thing, it's big.
And so that's flame hardened.
Yep.
And then we put the yoke on there for the U-joints.
Yes, yep.
And then we're able to put all our brakes and our hubs
Yep.
and everything back
Yep,
in.
exactly. That's just
so
the
we're
final
close.
touches.
You gotta machine this for the seal.
Yeah, so this guy needs to come down, at least part of it needs to come down so that it fits the seal properly. This actually is for that side, the longer side.
Right.
Essentially, we only need, I'd say, like 8 inches, because it just needs to come out to here,
Right.
where the seal actually sits.
Yep.
And then the rest of it, we can do whatever we want with, really.
Nice. So that's happening while the frame is heading off to Ontario Truck Rebuild, and it's going to get this same color. So all the
Yes.
suspension pieces, the heavy-duty 4 links from Synergy Suspension, plus the traction bar and sway bar, all of that is going to be this blue. I think we're going to leave this black just because it's. We're going to leave that black.
Because.
Just because. All right, so this is the heart of the Ram project, but I just want to stress that this is not going to be in the kits that we sell. So this was a theory to see, is it possible to take the stock axle tubes and suspension mounts and mount it to an electrified axle? But while we're doing this, as impressive as this is and as beautiful as this is, we're doing this just to prove the rest of the kit. There are no axles that fit our North American market, which is why we made our own. What we're doing is proving that the engine, the generator, the batteries, all of the electronics talk to each other, don't overheat, and move the truck down in a reliable manner with regen working, with generating working the way that it's supposed to. And then Dana already makes an S110 axle. So as soon as we drive this truck over to British Columbia, and it doesn't matter if this leaks or it vibrates a little bit or the tires are wearing a little bit, that's irrelevant to what we're trying to learn. As soon as the rest of the kit works, we're going to start putting these kits into 450 and 550 axles, because that is a stock Dana axle that's already electrified with your stock brakes, stock suspension, stock hubs. We can start getting these kits rolling out in a very cost-effective manner while we are doing the prototyping for our dual motor, which is a lot more compact, doesn't have this giant weight on there, doesn't need track bars to keep the axle from flexing. It's all going to be a much more compact system. We're excited about that, but that takes capital to be able to invest in that. So if you are interested in investing and you like what you see, you like the people behind the product, you understand our open policy on where we're at and what we're doing, you understand that we share our flaws and our shortcomings, but we power through, and you see a potential in Edison, you can invest in Edison Motors at their website, edisonmotors.ca. There is no other place to invest. Understand the risks that are involved with investing. Help us keep carrying on to the next stage. I think we have last time I checked, between 4,000 and 5,000 somewhere pre-orders for these pickup truck kits. So there is a desire on it, and we are working as hard as we possibly can to build a product that we are confident in, and that's all thanks to you guys and your support. YouTube, merch, and investing on edisonmotors.ca. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate every one of you. Check out the Land Cruiser, and then also everything happening on Edison with their semi-truck builds at the same time. And remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich. Get out there and work on it.